What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're back at you with another discussion format video. This time we'll be talking about The Mandalorian Chapter 7, The Reckoning. In my opinion, the best episode of The Mandalorian that we've gotten so far, followed close behind it by Chapter 6 of The Mandalorian, which is really awesome because we kind of had a little bit of a setback with Chapter 5 in a lot of people's opinions, myself included. Chapter 6 was absolutely amazing and super fun. And Chapter 7 is an absolute gut punch.
Yeah.
So with that said, please do not watch this video any further if you do not want anything spoiled for The Mandalorian. This is the best Star Wars that we've seen in years. It's probably the best Star Wars definitively that we've seen in this Disney era as far as like one big story. So I would say please, if you haven't watched it yet, you're on the fence, stop with spoilers now, go watch it. But let's go ahead and get into it now with our spoiler warning out of the way. So just a brief recap of the episode. The Mandalorian gets a message from Greef Karga that says that if he returns to the planet with the child, they are able to sort of weed out this Imperial force that is now occupying this planet and like impeding the guild, which of course we know Greef cares a great deal about. So he sets up this plan with Mando that Mando will get close enough to the what's his name? The Imperial.
The client?
Yeah, the client, sorry. If he can get close enough to the client, that Mando will actually take him out. And over the course of the episode, Mando sort of assembles his own little Star Wars Avengers team, which is what I kept on calling it. And I absolutely love all of these characters, and we knew they were all coming back because they were set up in previous episodes very well, I may add. And a lot of them come back. IG-11 comes back. He's been reprogrammed by Keel, and then you get other characters like Cara Dune that are coming back, and of course Baby Yoda. It really feels like a Star Wars Avengers team, which is cool.
It's awesome watching this episode, kind of seeing why they lay down all these different foundations in all these different episodes to then kind of like have it all culminate into this big final act of the season, which is super interesting. And this is definitely the most plotty episode, I think, of The Mandalorian. We have a few episodes where they're like a little bit like just this side adventure where the Mandalorian goes on this bounty, but this one is kind of like now you're seeing why all these pieces are fitting together and what's coming next. Right. And then epic cliffhanger at the end.
Right. So it makes a lot of sense too, and it sort of makes those filler episodes worth it.
Yeah.
Where I feel like episode 1, episode 3, and now episode 7 are the most plotty out of all of them, or main plot wise. As the main plot is, of course, what the Empire wants with Baby Yoda. I felt like everything in this episode looked absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I definitely think it has the best special effects, especially when you get into like the X-Wing at the end. It looked amazing.
Oh, the TIE Fighter?
TIE Fighter, not X-Wing. The TIE Fighter, which was so cool to see a TIE Fighter land like that. I remember we were just like, have we ever seen a TIE Fighter do that before? And it makes complete sense. It's a cool little like thing they add to the universe, I think. And I mean, just I thought that the raid when they were in the desert from those weird winged monsters, kind of looked like dragons.
That was super cool.
It was really cool looking visually, where it's super dark and smoky, and all the lighting is from like the blaster fire basically, and then the one little campfire in the center.
And it was horrifying too.
Yeah, but like visually, I think this episode was probably its strongest throughout the whole series.
Right, and then we also get some cool little revelations about Baby Yoda. We learned by Keel that he is not a clone. He says that it's pretty clear that he's not been engineered. So we learned that. That doesn't mean that the Empire doesn't want him to be cloned, which I do think that they do.
Yeah.
But he's not a clone here. And we also learned that not only does Baby Yoda use the dark side of the Force in a Force choke, which is a dark side ability, but he also uses the light side of the Force and Force heal. So he's not really aligned yet with any aspect of the Force, which I think is a little interesting thing. And none of these characters would know how to teach him light from dark.
Yeah, and I think that all just comes from being a child. You know,
right, absolutely.
He doesn't have the ability to really think through what he's doing. And it's fun to watch him do the Force heal finally, because they do have a little hint at it in, what is it, the third episode?
The second episode.
Is it in the second episode?
Yeah.
And like he goes to help or try to help heal the Mandalorian. There was a cat that just ran by. But the Mandalorian puts him back in his little cradle. But in this one, he heals Grief, and it's pretty amazing. He just very quickly like makes his wounds just completely fade away. And the Force choke thing is really fun too, because he's just watching Cara and Mando arm wrestling, and he worries about Mando and perceives Cara to be an enemy, and then almost kills her by Force choking her, and then the Mandalorian has to stop it. So Baby Yoda definitely had, I think, the most to do in this episode. I think we figured out more about him in this one.
Yeah, Baby Yoda wasn't just somebody that was pushed around and watched throughout the episode. He actually is integral to the plot in a few points. Obviously, the Empire wants him the most, which is super cool. Again, we learned that Grief actually had plans to betray them, but he was healed by Baby Yoda and had a change of heart.
He realizes the greater purpose behind this all. And I think it's also a key reason why they have Baby Yoda do all this stuff in this episode, is to kind of add to the weight of what they're all trying to do and who they're trying to save.
Right. They don't really fully understand the mystics and powers behind a Force wielder at all. So when somebody shows up, it's a big deal for the more common folk of the galaxy, even if one of them is a Mandalorian. But then we get into some of the most, like I said, gut-punching stuff I've seen in Star Wars in a minute. Like, this end cliffhanger hit me almost as bad as Han Solo's death in The Force Awakens, just because you don't see this one coming.
Yeah.
But you definitely, if he even is dead, there's a possibility that he's not dead. I hope he's dead.
Yeah.
Because it really makes the stakes really high. But who knows? Anyway, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So Grief, Cara, and the Mandalorian have a plan to make it look like the child is with them, and for the client, so that they can trick the client, and Mando can get close enough to kill him.
Yeah.
That ultimately fails when Moff Gideon has a phone call with, or like has a hologram with the client, and has all of his death troopers execute essentially everybody in that room because they realize that the child is not among them. So, and I absolutely love this moment, and I'm glad that the Death Troopers are back. They had an appearance with Thrawn in Star Wars Rebels, and they most notably in Star Wars or Rogue One. So it's really great to have them back. And Moff Gideon, I hope, is a character that is a villain for a long time.
I know, I agree.
He's played by an absolutely phenomenal actor, famous for Breaking Bad. But anyway, it goes poorly very, very quickly, and we quickly realize that the Empire has the upper hand here, and that Moff Gideon has anticipated this betrayal and is awaiting it to the point where they can actually pin down where Baby Yoda is exactly, and he sends out 2 scout troopers and they gun down Queel, sorry. My bad. And that was just such a surprise to me. When it just cut to Baby Yoda on the ground.
Yeah, that's the worst part of it.
Well, I thought that it was a trick. I thought that Queel was going to jump out with IG-11 and it was going to be a trick.
I remember that too, because it's like they have this episode set up in a way where you almost are led to believe that IG-11 is going to save the day, because now he's designed to protect, or programmed to protect.
Yeah.
So there's this moment where the scouts are chasing them, and you think like, oh, they're going to get close, but then IG-11 is going to walk out, he's going to save it. And what happens is they just gun down Queel, and then he drops Baby Yoda on the ground, and then they just, very quickly just
pick him up and leave.
And it's I thought originally it was a trick too, where it was like maybe he ditched Baby Yoda and they won't find him because of that, but it's
just
much
a hard
darker.
cut to his body.
Yeah, and that's how the episode ends entirely.
That's the last shot of the
last
episode.
shot is Queel just laying dead on the ground. And it's really cool, because I do think that there's a lot of things that these big movie franchises get wrong, and that's not really having the ability to make these risks and kill off characters that you love. That's the reason why Avengers has been so successful lately. It's because they knew that it would be a good idea to kill these characters and have some real weight to these movies, have some real stakes. So if Queel is truly dead, then these are larger stakes. The characters that you like aren't going to stick around necessarily the entire time.
Right. But we say goodbye to one of our favorite characters from The Mandalorian, one of the just genuinely good people from The Mandalorian, which I feel like makes it hurt so much more.
He does nothing in that show for profit. He does it only to help. He always denies compensation for his help. So it's like to see this one genuinely kind character in Star Wars die trying to protect a baby is really kind of heartbreaking.
So I give this episode a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree with you in saying that I think this is probably the best Star Wars we've gotten out of the Disney era of Star Wars.
So I'm so impressed with The Mandalorian. At this point, give the reins of Star Wars to Jon Favreau. I'm convinced. I'm fully on board. Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, they're individuals that respect the property, they love the property, and they know the property. And they're not afraid to take risks in ways that are meaningful and not risks for the sake of risks, but risks for the sake of storytelling.
Agreed.
So I love this episode. I can't wait to see what happens next. It gut punched me. I felt awful afterwards. My girlfriend ugly cried. That was hard to watch and kind of funny too. But it's just a great episode, and I absolutely love it. Anyway, guys, that was just our quick review of The Mandalorian. Stay tuned for tomorrow, as we're going to have a review for The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, big day.
Or the day after, depending on how late we get back. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little review / breakdown, and let us know what you guys thought in the comments down below. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.